Chapter 1 Of Hooves, Havoc, and a Hint of Cinnamon. In the charmingly lopsided village of Maplewood, nestled between two brooks, one maple syrup cartel, and a regrettably vocal flock of geese, the only thing more potent than the afternoon tea was the gossip. Mrs. Edwina Featherstone, widow of a colonial tea magnate and self-appointed custodian of good breeding, had just taken her seat in the drawing-room of Maplewood Manor. The fire crackled with aristocratic restraint. A three-tiered tray bore a new batch of lemon tarts shaped like miniature bonnets. The Darjeeling was piping hot and just dark enough to judge the neighbors by. Edwina raised her cup, sighed contentedly, and was about to indulge in the scandal of Mrs. Crabapple's newest gardening boy when the doors burst open. "Madam, the Duke is in the parlor." Mr. Potts, the footman, shouted, sweat already dewing his brow. "I assume," Edwina replied, adjusting her lace cuffs without looking up, "you mean the horse and not an actual nobleman with the audacity to arrive unannounced." "Yes, ma'am. Duke of Thunder, he's in the tea parlor, and there's a situation." From the foyer came a gasp, a clatter, and a child's delighted squeal. "He's wearing a hat!" Two children, Ruby, age 9, and Tobias, 7, had wandered in from their lesson with the governess and were peeking around the corner, eyes wide. "This is better than arithmetic," Tobias whispered. Colonel Horatio Blight, Edwina's old friend and occasional foil in village matters and wars, rose from his wing-back chair with a grunt. "If the blasted beast is sipping Earl Grey again, I shall request combat pay." They followed Potts into the parlor. The floor bore unmistakable hoofprints in the Aubusson carpet. A vase trembled. A teacup had met its end. And in the center of the room stood the Duke of Thunder, a coal-black stallion with a noble head and an even nobler attitude. He snorted indignantly at a platter of watercress sandwiches. But that wasn't the shocking part. On the horse's back was a man, strapped to the saddle, dead, wearing crimson riding attire. A silver asparagus fork protruded from his neck like a terribly improper cravat pin. "Oh dear," Edwina murmured. "I do believe someone's gone and expired in my parlor. How inconvenient." "And dramatic," Horatio added, peering at the corpse. "Who dies mid-sandwich delivery?" From the hallway, the children gasped audibly. Ruby whispered, "Is he sleeping?" Luis Calderon, the Spanish writing instructor temporarily boarding in the estate's west wing, appeared in the doorway. "Perdón, señora, I heard commotion." His eyes flicked to the dead man, widened, then narrowed. "You know him?" Edwina asked. Luis hesitated, then said softly, "I believe he trained once in Juarez, but this is no accident." "No," Edwina agreed. "This, dear Luis, is a murder, brought directly to my parlor by horse." Wellington the cat strolled in, sniffed the dead man's boots, and promptly sat on his chest. "Potts," Edwina said with a steely calm, "do summon Miss Quill, and kindly inform the constable that he may want to bring more than one notebook." "And the children?" Potts asked. Edwina turned to Ruby and Tobias, who were now attempting to poke the horse with a ruler. "Give them ginger biscuits and tell them it's a dramatic reenactment of Canadian Confederation." The mystery had begun. Chapter 2 Ink, Intrigue, and the Arrival of Miss Quill. 23 minutes later, Miss Tabitha Quill burst through the manor's arched entryway in a flurry of ink-streaked skirts and flying bonnet ribbons. As Maplewood's unofficial historian, record-keeper, and general menace to obfuscation, she had an uncanny habit of showing up just after the worst had occurred. I came as soon as I heard, she declared breathlessly, pausing only to give Tobias a pat on the head and to adjust her spectacles, which had become alarmingly foggy. Mrs. Featherstone met her with a thin-lipped smile. A man is dead in my tea parlor, Tabitha. Murdered, I might add, and delivered by horse. And with a rather theatrical flair, added Colonel Blight. There's a fork involved. Tabitha peered into the parlor and gave a low whistle. Asparagus fork? That's a four-pronger. Not subtle. And crimson coat? We're talking message here, not murder. Louis Calderon stood by the fireplace, arms folded, eyes narrowed. He nodded a faint greeting to Tabitha. He was trained in Spain, rode in Seville once, but I believe he came to Canada for opportunity. Dead men often do, Tabitha muttered, crouching beside the body. Still warm. That puts the time of death at less than an hour ago. And here, a bit of lemon oil on his gloves. Odd, he wasn't preparing tea. He was hiding something. Edwina raised a brow. Or leaving a trail. Outside the parlor, Ruby and Tobias reenacted the scene with toy soldiers, narrating in dramatic whispers. And then the fork of doom struck. Pow! Tabitha stood, dusting her hands. We'll need to search the saddle. Carefully. Horatio nodded and motioned for the footman to bring gloves. Can't let fingerprints smudge a good murder. Wellington leaped off the corpse and sauntered over to the saddlebag, pawing at the flap with a disturbingly knowing glance. Aha, Tabitha said, reaching inside. There's a letter. Wax seal, odd script, and lemon juice? Secret ink? How deliciously espionage, Edwina said, holding it over a steaming pot. Words began to appear faintly on the page. The deed is forged. Midnight. North Gate. Burn after reading. Louis and Tabitha exchanged a glance. This wasn't just a local squabble, Louis murmured. This man was involved in something bigger. Edwina straightened her back. Then so are we. Horatio groaned. Does it involve sneaking through fields again? I still have burrs from last autumn. We'll need to visit Lord Hawthorne, Tabitha said. His livery matches the dead man's waistcoat. If anyone knows why a noble-looking stranger ends up in a Maplewood parlor, it's the man with too many horses and not enough secrets. I shall change gloves, Edwina declared. Blood and Battenberg simply do not mix. The plot thickened, and in Maplewood, it always thickened with scandal, cinnamon, and just a touch of saddle wax. Chapter 3. Chartreuse Sandals and Cravat Diplomacy. The following morning arrived with indecent cheeriness, as if the sun were oblivious to the murder that had darkened the household less than a day before. Edwina Featherstone found the clear skies an affront. Colonel Blight, still grumbling over his porridge, muttered, The cat stared at me all night, as if I were next. Wellington yawned elaborately from the sideboard. We leave in an hour, Edwina declared, selecting gloves from her morning drawer. Today we call on Lord Hawthorne. Tactfully. Their carriage rolled toward Hawthorne Hall, a structure less designed for comfort than for intimidation through excessive cornicing. The children waved them off dramatically, shouting, Solve the murder! Bring back biscuits! Upon arrival, they were greeted by an unusually sullen footman with sideburns so sharp they could slice crumpets. Lord Hawthorne is expecting you. In the morning room, Lord Jasper Hawthorne reclined like a man auditioning to be painted. His chartreuse dressing gown glowed ominously, and his cravat could have supported a small circus tent. "My dear Edwina," he drawled, "you've come to accuse me of murder so early? I haven't even insulted the bishop yet." "We're here about your horse," Edwina said. "Specifically, the Duke of Thunder and the gentleman he transported like a morbid telegram." Jasper sighed. "Ah, yes, the corpse delivery. Unseemly business. The Frenchman, Claude Bellamy. Not one of mine, technically. Freelance." Tabitha stepped forward. "He wore your colors." "I let him stable here," Jasper said. "Seemed charming. Terrible taste in waistcoats." Lewis, who had joined them under the pretense of assessing the Duke's condition, stepped forward. "He trained in Juarez, and he mentioned the Ascot." That got Jasper's attention. "He said Ascot needed fresh blood," Lewis continued, "and that Canada had more to offer than anyone realized." Jasper stood abruptly. He knew too much. Not about horses, about people. Edwina narrowed her eyes. "Did he ever mention a forged deed?" "He spoke of land deals," Jasper admitted, "and how some titles were merely paper and ink. Said it didn't matter where you were born, only what you claimed." "And now he's dead," Blight added. Jasper waved a hand. "As are many dreamers. Do stay for sherry, won't you?" "No," Edwina said crisply, "but thank you." Back in the carriage, Tabitha turned to Edwina. "He knows more. He's rattled." "And scared," Lewis added. "Bellamy wasn't just involved, he was pulling strings." "Then we pull harder," Edwina said. "We visit Lady Plunkett next, and I'd wager she's got more than rhubarb in her cellar." The carriage wheels clattered onward, the mystery deepening with every elegant jostle. Chapter 4. Tea with a Side of Blackmail. The Plunkett estate, a sprawling Gothic confection shaped like an afterthought and decorated like a French aristocrat's fever dream, stood bathed in suspicious sunlight. Its battlements were entirely decorative, its gargoyles too smug by half, and its owner, Lady Henrietta Plunkett, entirely too aware of both. As Edwina Featherstone, Colonel Blight, Tabitha Quill, and Louis Calderon approached the estate, even the children peering through the estate gates whispered, "That's where the ghosts go to gossip." They were greeted by a manservant so pale and powdered he might have been carved from meringue. "Her ladyship awaits," he intoned with a disdainful sniff. "Mind the peacock, he's unpredictable." The peacock, named Reginald, greeted them with an ear-splitting shriek and a flurry of sapphire feathers. Louis narrowly avoided a beak to the shin. Inside, the drawing room looked like a Baroque ballroom had collided with a milliner's warehouse. Gilded sconces, velvet in all shades of emotional trauma, and a collection of porcelain monkeys glared from every shelf. Lady Henrietta Plunkett swept in wearing a gown the precise shade of betrayal. "Edwina," she said, air-kissing with military precision, "how galling to see you under circumstances so unscheduled." "Henrietta," Edwina replied, "your estate remains as memorable as ever." Introductions were made. Louis bowed. Tabitha complimented a particularly unsettling vase. "We're here," Edwina said, "about Claude Bellamy." Henrietta blinked. That old rooster of a man? I paid him. Briefly. For what exactly? Asked Tabitha. Documents, Henrietta replied. He said he could acquire irregular deeds. There's a parcel near the maple grove I wanted. Old rights. Bellamy said he could help. Did he mention forged titles? Royal races? Edwina leaned in. Henrietta hesitated. He said he had contacts abroad, that certain bloodlines were negotiable. Lewis raised an eyebrow. He spoke of Ascot. Briefly, she admitted, but always in riddles. Said the real races weren't won on turf, but on parchment. Was he blackmailing you? Edwina asked bluntly. Henrietta flinched, then smiled. He tried. Sent me a letter. Claimed to have insurance. Said if he vanished, the truth would follow. She rose and retrieved a drawer from an armoire shaped like a pouting cherub. From it, she produced a folded letter sealed with plain wax. Edwina opened it carefully. It read, If I vanish, the truth rides with thunder. Look to the saddle. The names are hidden where nobility will never kneel. Tabitha paled. He stored something in the saddle? Documents? A list? Or leverage, Lewis murmured. Colonel Blight frowned. We need to speak to the constable. Check that saddle. Wellington the cat, who had slipped in unnoticed, batted at the note with clear disdain. Lady Plunkett poured herself sherry. I didn't kill him, but someone did. And if they know you're asking questions, you'll be next. Outside, the peacock shrieked again. Edwina stood. Thank you, Henrietta. This has been most informative. Of course, darling, she said sweetly. Try not to get murdered before Thursday. I hear the pastries will be exquisite. Back in the carriage, the team fell silent. Tabitha clutched the letter. Lewis finally broke the quiet. We are not just chasing a murderer. We are chasing a secret someone buried in a saddle. Edwina nodded. And if Bellamy was right, that saddle holds the key to a racing conspiracy with international reach. Colonel Blight cracked his knuckles. Then it's time we took the gloves off. Edwina arched a brow. Not before tea. Even scandal must obey propriety. And with that, the mystery galloped forward. Chapter 5. Saddle Secrets and Stable Shadows. The constable, Mr. Edgar Nibbs, was a small, mustachioed man with a fondness for boiled sweets and a deeply conflicted relationship with urgency. He was already at Maplewood Manor when the group returned, having been summoned earlier to catalogue the unfortunate corpse. He had not, however, examined the saddle. It smelled of horse, he explained apologetically. I thought it best left to the stablemaster. Constable Nibbs, Edwina said, peering down at him with the polite intensity of a hawk examining a mouse. Someone may have hidden blackmail documents inside that saddle. Possibly names, possibly royalty, possibly about racing fraud, possibly in lemon ink. I see, he said, and immediately dropped his sweet. Together they proceeded to the stables, where Duke of Thunder stood in noble silence, accepting carrots from Tobias and Ruby, who had made it their mission to train him to nod on cue. We named the corpse, too, Ruby said. Sir Pointy. Excellent, Edwina replied. Historical accuracy must be encouraged. Louis and Tabitha carefully undid the saddle, revealing a false bottom. Inside, wrapped in oilskin, were several folded parchments. This one has a crest, Tabitha said, holding it up. Hawthorns. But it's wrong. The dates don't match. Forged titles, Edwina murmured. Inheritance by illusion. Another paper bore a list of names, various nobles and estate owners. At the bottom, scrawled hastily, was one more name. Featherstone. Everyone turned to Edwina. Well, she said dryly, that's awkward. Louis examined the seal. These were meant to undermine claims, replace them with loyalists, perhaps tied to betting syndicates, maybe even royal horses. Then the death of Bellamy was a silent scene, Tabitha said. He was going to talk, Edwina nodded, or sell. The stable door creaked. A shadow passed. Colonel Blight drew his walking stick, which turned out to contain a rather elegant saber. Show yourself, he barked. A boy, perhaps 12, stepped forward, eyes wide. It was Amos, the orphan stable boy who knew every hoof print by heart. I saw someone, he whispered. Not before last. Black coat. Came from the woods. He gave Thunder an apple and tucked something in the saddle. Then left. Didn't speak. Could you identify him again? Edwina asked gently. Amos nodded. He had a limp, and he smelled like varnish. Interesting, Tabitha mused. Furniture maker? Or perhaps someone masking another scent? Constable Nibs blinked. Should I draw a sketch? Only if your art has improved since the goose theft incident, Edwina said. They gathered the documents, storing them in Tabitha's satchel, which was now one rogue quill away from explosion. We need to lie low, Louis advised. Whoever did this won't stop until the documents are destroyed. Then we don't hide, Edwina said firmly. We host a gathering. Invite all the suspects. Make it impossible for them to act without exposing themselves. Colonel Blight grinned. A party trap? Delightful! With dancing? Ruby added from atop a hay bale. Tabitha looked concerned. It's risky. So is inaction, Edwina replied. And if someone plans to kill again, they'll do it when everyone is in one place. Louis folded the documents and tapped them thoughtfully. Then we bait the trap with the truth. And so it was decided. A grand ball at Maplewood Manor. Horses, high society, and hopefully a killer unmasked before the last waltz.